Right, I'm going to begin, guys, by saying it was supposed to be so easy narrative structure. It's one that just has such great appeal to audiences. What do you think it is about that kind of idea of things just going slightly wrong when things were supposed to go so right that just really captures our imaginations?
I don't know, I guess it's probably just how we generally approach life, right? Yeah. I mean, you kind of set out to do something with the assumption that it'll go to plan. And if you put enough thought into it, that will increase the chances of it going well. And I guess, with this is a sort of movie partly about a story influenced by movies, or a group of young men influenced by movies, possibly. And so, we had an expression on set that, in their heads it's Ocean's 11 and in reality it's Dog Day Afternoon, that they are caught up in a kind of movie fantasy which goes too far, and the moment they cross into the reality of what and if you're not a born criminal, I'm not sure anyone's a born criminal, but if you're not, you might be a born
criminal.
Yeah, normal criminal. Then and you're setting out to do something, to commit a robbery, chances are it's not like it is in the movies.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a payoff in terms of how the audience get involved in the same sort of expectation that the protagonists do, and then they also, I guess, the wheels come off when it turns out that it's not really like it is in Ocean's 11.
Because I guess the big question that runs the whole way through it, particularly from an audience point of view, is why are they doing this? Now, I guess particularly for you, Barry, because you had to get into the head of one of the characters who was doing it. Was that the main thing that you kept asking yourself? You're trying to understand what compelled these people to do
coming
this?
From the background that they come from, especially, you're kind of like, you have everything, you've won, that kind of, but then when you think of it from Spencer's point of view, and not to say that it was the right thing to do, but his motive was, I don't have an experience or a past or a crisis like for instance Van Gogh or all these other artists he looks up to. So I mean that was his drive. I can't speak for Warren, but from what I can tell, it was obviously the money for Warren and the rest of the lads.
Because I mean, that is one of the themes of this. I guess Spencer's character obviously says that obviously true artists need to suffer. Now, perhaps not to this extent. But do you think there is a truth to that sentiment in any way?
I don't know. As an actor, I guess you need stuff to draw upon.
Yeah, definitely. For me, especially the way I work, it's and that's not to say I'm glad that everything that has happened like throughout my life, but experiences definitely have shaped me as an actor.
And I'm not sure, I think, Spencer was looking at all of the great artists that ever lived, and all of them had, none of them had an easy go of it, and he's looking at his life and thinking, what am I ever going to have to say? What am I going to have to make art about that is of any relevance, given that, he's got a lovely supportive family, he lives in a nice house in a nice subdivision of suburban Kentucky. So I guess I can understand the logic. I'm not sure I can sympathize with the idea that not having a problem is a problem. But he wants an experience of life, and he's living in this very sanitized world.
And of course, I mean, there's always a pressure when you take on anyone, I'm sure, Barry. But in this instance, knowing that the real Spencer was going to watch this movie and watch himself being portrayed on screen, did that add an element of pressure? Were you quite nervous asking for his reaction, which I'm assuming you must have spoken to him since? Yeah,
definitely. You have to hold a certain amount of respect as well for the people that were affected by it. And you're retelling the story that has really affected a lot of people. So I had that in mind, and obviously, playing Spencer, but given Bart's background in documentaries, and it's kind of had me trusting Bart and that he'd make it look good, and and it did. It's great. You should go see it, September 7th.
And of course, it's one of many films come out with the word kind of American in the title. There's something about that word that fits into so many titles of movies, be it kind of American Hustle or, there was American Made last summer, for example, with Tom Cruise. Why do you think that we use that word to put into the projects and kind of have it be such a prevalent part of the movie? Is it in some ways because it's almost like almost a blotched version of what the American dream is supposed to be? Is that
yeah, I mean, it's actually, I haven't been asked that question yet. It's really interesting. And actually, I read somewhere someone, kind of saying, did people put that in front of the title as if to say this is a comment on American society? I mean, I think this was the title was to do partly with Birds of America, which is the work of art that they steal, and obviously The Origin of Species, and that was the other book that they steal.
It's such a good title, though.
And it's also about this idea of kind of, Darwin talks about American animals and domestic animals in particular having evolved to a point where, the reason dogs have drooping ears as opposed to wild animals who have, wolves and stuff have upright is because they don't have the same need to be alert.
Really?
They don't have the same awareness because they're domestic, right? They don't have that. And in a way, what these guys are looking for is an experience of life that's going to make them feel like they're really alive, as misguided as that is. So for me, American Animals was, it made sense on lots of levels, but I can understand why it's sort of and it's also, I guess, it is a comment on, how the American dream has shifted. Success isn't a nice house, nice car, college education, which is what these young men's parents had. That's success. Success now is much more about, am I going to be remembered? Am I famous? Am I important? So it's all about that.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thanks.
I'm just going to stay sat here, but it ends it well on the card, and also stops all my editors.